I'm joined by David Burstein, who is CEO, co-founder of Run for America. You also wrote a book called Fast Future, How the Millennial Generation is Shaping Our World. Nice to talk to you here.
Great to be with you.
You spoke on a panel at the Milken Institute Global Conference that raised the question, what do millennials want? So what do they want? Why is it so much different than what baby boomers or others want?
You know, this generation is a generation of pragmatic idealists who care deeply about trying to make the world a better place, but they also want to have a plan in order to do that. It's the largest generation in history, it's the most diverse generation in history, and it's really a generation that is changing every single way that we look at business, technology, culture, politics. And what they crave really is a deeper sense of community, a deeper sense of transparency and responsibility from our leaders, from our businesses, from our governments. And they are trusting more and more of each other. They want to see a world that is more community-based, and they're really changing the nature of work, they're changing the nature of our politics, and it's a really exciting time to be looking at this generation because they're starting to become leaders in our society, not just the kids that are running around underneath us.
Well, we certainly have some millennial CEOs. We've talked to some of them here, in fact. How are they changing the business culture?
I think one of the biggest changes is in the way that we look at culture and workplace culture. The average millennial will have 12 different jobs by the time they turn 38. So this is not a generation of people who are planning on just climbing up a corporate ladder over their lifetime. So from an employer perspective, they might say, well, wait a minute, this group of people, why should I invest any effort in training them? The reason you should is because when these people feel like they are learning and they're growing, and when they feel like there's a culture at a company that they align with, they're some of the best, most productive, hardest working people that you can possibly find. So this second point about culture is really changing. People are not looking at a job from the perspective of, great, give me my paycheck and let me go. This is a sense of what is my identity? My identity is tied into working at this place. What are the values of this institution? What are the things that this place is doing to make the world a better place? And millennial CEOs obviously get that more than CEOs of other generations. But CEOs of all generations are starting to learn this and see this and reflect it, because there's really no other way to entice people in this generation other than to be able to align with what it is that they want.
So now let's move to the political arena. A presidential campaign is soon upon us. How will the millennials be involved in politics and perhaps change the dynamic of the race?
Well, there was just a poll that came out this morning from the Harvard Institute of Politics talking about the state of millennials in 2016. And one of the really interesting things that we find, so when the same poll was done in the lead up to the 2008 race, 67% of people said they were planning on voting for a Democratic president in 2008. This latest poll is down to 55% among young people. So we have to look at this generation not as a group of people who are in the tank for Democrats, certainly not in the tank for Republicans, but I think that this is one of the most important generations politically. This generation will make up a third of the entire electorate by 2020, and their votes should not be taken for granted. It's really important that candidates are deeply engaging with these people, because the thing that we've seen over and over again is that people in this generation respond to people who reach out to them, and they need to be treated as serious members of our society, which they are.
Well, we saw social media play a role in the last campaign, so is that what you mean by reaching out? Or something different?
I think it's got to be deeper than that, right? I mean, politicians spend a disproportionate amount of time talking to senior citizens and groups of people who have shown that they turn out and vote. They don't do the same when it comes to young people. So politicians need to actually meet young people where they are and make that commitment to them and say, we don't just want to talk to you about what music you like and student loans, but we want to talk to you about all the issues that are important to this country, because this is the group of people who's going to make up the future, who's actually going to live in that world.
What is the biggest misconception that people over the age of 40 or 50 have about millennials?
I think that this sense that this is a generation that is entitled or invested in them only in themselves. And this is probably one of the most civically engaged, most community-minded groups of people that we've seen in a long time. And at every level, they absolutely want to make the world a better place. That is not disconnected from enjoying taking selfies with their friends. And all this talk about narcissism and entitlement, I think we have an entitled society at large. This is not anything new. People have been talking about narcissism among generations for decades, and across the board we have an entitled society. It's not a millennial thing, and in fact, if anything, I think the millennials are a great force pushing back against that, because they've grown up in a world where they have seen the most amount of challenges that we've ever had, right, on a global scale. So there's a level of awareness that says, I see these problems and I want to actually do something to help. And that could be local, it could be global, it could be national, but we're seeing that commitment come up over and over again.
David Burstein, great to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.